Good evening, witches. Welcome to week 6 of the Beginner Witch series. We'll get started in just a minute. Welcome, everyone, to week 6 of the Beginner Witch series. I'm Kat. This is Jamie. I'm a newer witch. For those of you who are new to the group tonight, or the meetup tonight, I'm a newer witch, 3 years almost into my practice. Jamie's about 25 years into hers. We started this group in November of 2020 as a New Witches Q&A and have grown it to 1,020 witches as of today. That's crazy. And we just sat down tonight and actually planned out the next 4 months of meetings. That's really exciting. Actually, all the way through October 31st. So I'm stoked about that. And for those of you, again, who are new, if you're looking for resources, the lesson plans for each week of the Beginner Witch series are on a Google Drive. And the link to that is in the description of tonight's meetup. We also have a Facebook group that you can join if you would like to. It's New Witches Meetup is the Facebook group name. And we'll get started. We'll go ahead and get started. So week 6, magic ingredients 2. Magic ingredients was just too much for 1 week. And last week we talked about things that you can find around your home, especially in your kitchen, like spices and things like that. And this week we're going to go ahead and expand on our knowledge about magic ingredients. Oh, before we do, I do want to share something with you. Last week we talked about candles. And I think you guys might remember me, those of you who were here, talking about these little bitty candles that I bought and just kind of warning you about when you buy things off of Amazon, make sure you check the sizes because they don't always fit in your little candle holders. Well, today I figured out how to make it work. So what I did is I torched the candle. Oops, sorry about that. So I took a torch to the candle and melted it and put wax in the bottom of this and then stuck it. So I can actually use the candles and it's a little crooked, if you can see, but I'm super happy about it that I can actually use the candles. And now I'm kind of like, oh, okay, maybe these are worth whatever I paid for them, which I don't think was very much. So, I need to do my sticking a little better, but you know, instead of trying to find a candle holder that fits it, you know, make it fit, I guess is my point, like with the wax or something like that. That's what I ended up with at the bottom of it. But once you got it burning, you're not going anywhere anyway. So, okay. So I just want to touch base on that because I did kind of complain about a little bit about the pretty little candles I bought that I thought were kind of skimpy. All right, so right into magical properties. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was we didn't get to talk too much last week about things that are available to you right outside your door, like in your neighborhood, in your yard, in your neighborhood, at the park down the street. And that's going to be weeds. So tonight, because there's magical properties for all these things. So I went for a little walk tonight with my dog, and this was a little dried weed. How cool looking is that? I have no idea what it was, but I liked it so much I brought it home. It's got 7 points on it, and I just thought it was really cool. And then when I came back in my yard, I started picking things out of the yard. Like I obviously have weeds growing in my yard, as you can see, even though it's the dead of winter. Dead of winter in Florida. So I picked a couple other things. I'm not sure what they are, but you know, there's ways for you to find out by the leaf side, the shape of the leaves and things like that, and the flowers on them, what they are and what their magical properties are. And this is actually a flower, but this thing, once it starts growing in your yard in Florida, you can never get rid of it. I don't know, it just loves it here. So I guess the point of that is I picked those up on a walk tonight with my dog about 5 o'clock. So I know some of you may not live in Florida and it may be like all snowy or icy wherever you are. But when, you know, as spring comes, these things will start cropping up. So keep that in mind as we go through tonight. So a couple of things I want to bring up about where you can like just discovering, this is about discovering what's around you. So depending on where you live, One of the things that I used to see in Kansas all the time is dandelions. They like covered my yard, and I had a company that would come out and kill them. Well, those darn little things, they're actually really good for attracting positive energy, and then the flowers that come off of them are good for money spells. Not to mention, when you pick up the dandelions, you can like make a wish, because they blow all over the place, seeds everywhere and stuff. So dandelions, don't ignore the little dastardly dandelion. It has magical properties. Stinging nettles, which are exactly what you think they are. I put pictures in tonight's meetup, by the way, if nobody knows what a stinging nettle is, what each of these are. I put pictures in tonight's meetup with a description of them. And I also put the picture in the Dropbox. All the images say week 6, like dandelion, yarrow, but stinging nettle is a protective plant that can also be used to return negative energy to somebody who's trying to wish you ill. Yarrow it protects against negativity. It sharpens intuition and is used in healing spells. Mind you, these are weeds that grow freely on the side of the road or in your backyard or in your grass where you don't want them. Or in a park, anywhere. They're literally everywhere. You just have to know how to identify them. I guess that is my point about these, is like learn. What I want to say is take a walk and start learning the plants and the weeds and the flowers and things that are right outside your door, and learn how to use them. Broadleaf plantain. There are plantains of those banana looking things, but that's not this. This is actually a weed. And it's used for protection, and it's as an aid in divination. And then back to the little herbs that we have. We didn't talk about mint last week, and mint has so many awesome magical properties: money, luck, healing, happiness, travel, prosperity. Mint is like a super herb, and there's lots of different kinds of those, but mint is something you could easily grow in a little garden in your windowsill.
Yeah, and if you live in a place that stays pretty warm, and mint will go dormant to a degree, so I don't know how far north it'll grow, but it turns into a weed if you plant it somewhere, because it will root out. It shoots rhododendrons through the ground, and it will just pop up everywhere. So I joke with my husband all the time. I'm like, why should we get sod when we should just plant mint? And then when people mow, can you imagine the smell of mint through the entire neighborhood when you mow your grass? It's an idea. We haven't done it yet. I have a pretty big mint garden that grows fantastic because we live in Florida. So
Drea asked the question, what plant is it for protection, and send back the ill intentions that someone might have cast your way? That's the stinging nettle. And there's a picture of it. I haven't seen one I haven't noticed anyway. I've probably seen them, but I just didn't realize what it was. But there's a picture of it to help you identify it. The other thing you can do, of course, is get one of those plant apps. Jamie did this with
for 1 year
with an app, and she paid what, $70
$70 for 1 year. That's when I moved into a new place, and I wanted to try to identify everything in my yard that was growing, and it was fun. And everywhere I went, I sort of used the app. There's something to know about living closer to the equator that's fun. We don't have a drastic winter, but all of these really awesome weeds that are magical, they don't really grow down here. We don't get a lot of the weeds that naturally occur up in the, above like South Carolina. So from South Carolina up, all these things grow in nature, which is awesome. So if I had lived up there using that, I probably could have found more plants that were, instead of having to buy them dried online from somewhere or something, they grow randomly. This is a good time for me to interject.
Actually, it is a really good time. Jamie's got some things to add before we start talking about how to dry them, or are you going to talk about that too?
I can, but I made this list for you guys tonight because one of the things that I love is the stuff that we eat and use every single day has had magical properties for people's going way back, right? And we're so disconnected from our food and where it comes from, and sort of the regions and the stories associated with our fruits and vegetables and herbs, that you just know it is like, it's just mint. It goes in a mojito. I mean, that's what I know about mint, right? Or making candies or something, but
or gum.
I mean, so it's used, and then there's 5 or 6 different types of mints. Catnip is actually a type of mint. So I made this list for you. It's not in anything yet. And Kat said she's going to go ahead and upload it into one of the documents that she made tonight, but I'll read it off to you. So if you don't want to make notes, that's okay, because we will have it loaded. But these are things that you can go to your grocery store at any time of year and find if you want to work with them for their properties. And it's foods. Okay, so I've got a couple herbs, but I've got foods and fruits. So for love, apples are magically used for love. Love spells attraction of love, and ginger as well. Ginger is used for a bunch of stuff, but if you have apples and ginger, like, you're ready for a love spell. Those are two things. If you want wealth, oranges. I mean, we live in the orange state, so, but oranges are for success. They're for wealth. Grapes. If you think about like grapes and how they're portrayed in the really old movies of like people feeding grapes to each other, grapes used to only be for the wealthy. They were a very expensive fruit to get. I mean, they're still kind of expensive of the fruits. Bananas are the cheapest. And you know what bananas represent? Fertility. So when we're sending that little eggplant emoji around, people need to be sending.
When she said fertility, of course, I only could think of one thing came to my mind. I'm sure you don't know what that was.
Well, and it's a banana plant. It has the shit. Yeah. I wouldn't eat bananas in public when I was younger because teenage boys and all their little chatterings. So, but almonds and grapes and oranges are for wealth or success. Then protection, blackberries. Like, how cute is that a blackberry is for protection? Again, I can think of so many drinks that I've had with these things. It's like you can make yourself a tonic with water and these fruits, and that's a spell. Along with protection, garlic is still for protection. So we talked about this one time where it's like the vampires and protecting yourself from people or from kissing people or eating garlic to ward off people you don't want. For success and power, again, oranges, ginger. Ginger is such a great fresh ingredient. Like the smell of it, it's really strong. So you can cut that up and add it to something for a spell. For career, okay, I actually just relearned this one time because I don't do any career spells, but the pecan or the pecan. So if you're eating a piece of pecan pie, you'd be like, this is going towards the success of my career. Why not? Relationships are lemons, which at first I didn't understand because lemons make you like pucker. It's the sour face. Yeah. But it's because of their color. So it's the color of your solar plexus, the chakra that's all about like energy and moving forward, and right before your heart chakra. So it is about building a physical relationship with somebody. So not love, not romantic, but family, friendships, coworkers. That would be relationships. And then for health and healing, we've got the apple again, garlic, and walnuts. Of course, everybody knows that walnuts like the health nut, right? It looks like the brain. It's good for your health. Then for cleansing, coconuts. And that's because coconuts can go into so many things that are cleansers, like toothpaste. If you've ever made your own toothpaste, which is a really interesting thing to do, coconut oil actually goes into toothpaste. And it makes your teeth feel so slippery and smooth. It's odd, but it's a cleanser. And then fertility, of course, is the banana. So that was a list of like fruits and no vegetables, I guess. I didn't put on there. Like cucumber is actually good for health and cleansing as well. But just a few things to add to your grocery list if you want to do spells in those areas. For herbs, I was trying to create a really cohesive list of like, if you just had these 5 herbs, you could pretty much do any spell and you could get them fresh or dried. I didn't quite get it narrowed down to the 9 areas that I just mentioned, but I picked 4. If you were just going to have 4 herbs to get through anything, it would be basil. So you can buy this fresh in your grocery store. You can buy it dried. Thyme, because thyme is like health, healing, psychic powers, purification. Basil is love and wealth and protection. But then rosemary, oh my gosh, the list on rosemary does like 10 things. So it's a plant that does everything. Originally, holy water was just water blessed with rosemary. So that was how they blessed it. It wasn't like a prayer said over. It was like, oh, we're going to stir this with rosemary sprig and boom, holy water. And then mint, because mint is money, healing, travel, and protection. Like, that pretty much covers a lot of the things that I do or I'm looking for or want to attract. So if you had to just pick 4 herbs, that would be it. Basil, thyme, rosemary, and mint. And if you can grow them, even better. Ooh, all right. So you guys, if you stick, this is way off topic, but if you stick any of these in water when you get them home from the grocery store, if you like clip off the end of it where it's dried and put it in water, it'll grow roots and then you can plant it. So if you wanted to start your own plant of any of these, you could start growing it. And once it gets roots on it, just put it in some good soil and set it in a windowsill where it gets plenty of light. You'll be good to go. I'm a plant person, so. Okay, so I guess that moves us on to like drying.
Well, yeah. So actually, maybe we can talk a little bit about the difference between when you're using in a spell, either a dried herb or a fresh herb, because how do you know? I'll let you. Jamie's brought some samples of spell jars with her, some really cool spell jars, and she's going to talk about those. And they have dried and fresh.
They do. They have dried and fresh. So I have ferns everywhere. Ferns grow like, I guess, weeds here. They are weeds. But so ferns I use fresh, but this is a prosperity jar, which prosperity can be wealth, health, success, forward movement. It doesn't have to be just money. So there's a lot of different things in my jar. Like there's a citrine, there's but any coin I found while I was preparing this, I picked up and put at the bottom of it. And then there's a couple of quartz crystals. There's a $5 bill. I actually have some, what is it?
The
fortune cookies.
Fortune cookies, yeah. The fortune from the fortune cookies.
Yeah, I have that in the jar as well because I was having lunch with my sister and it was something about like, you don't ever need to worry about money. It's always on the way to you. And I was like, hello, can I get that every day? So inside here, the thing to talk about is that I put fresh, I picked fresh ferns, and I'll go ahead and open it. But this spell is ready to be recycled, returned to the earth. But with the fresh, when you use fresh herbs, there's going to be a point at which it dries up in there as long as it has no air. It's possible that it molds. So if you decide to do fresh and put it in a jar, know that it might mold. And you just need to be okay with that, or you use it already dried so that you don't have to worry about it.
That was an important point of the dried versus fresh.
So
if there's any moisture, there's going to be mold, just the natural thing that happens with a plant.
Right. So this is one of my quartz that I have in there that with the fresh plant on it, it dried onto the crystal. So I'll have to clean that because, like I said, these have been sitting in here for about a year. And even if it molded, like this still has, it's so hard to see, but it has fuzzy stuff on it. And it's not bad for it. It doesn't mean, for me, it doesn't mean a bad omen. It's not anything that's.
Is this bark?
Yeah, it's pine.
You have a piece of pine bark.
Because pine is protection. And wealth and lots of other things. But that's using it when it's fresh and then knowing that you're going to get an effect, whether that's mold or it's going to stick to stuff. And you just have to decide how you feel about it. This other money jar that I did, this one is actually for money. I was calling in trying to pay for something that was a pretty big expense. And at the bottom of that is honey. So I have real money in there again, sitting in paper, and honey, because it's already preserved, it doesn't mold or rot. So everything that's in there doesn't have mold or anything crazy growing on it. But it's something to know that when you pull it out of here, you're going to have to clean stuff if you want to use it again. Because it's going to have honey stuck all over it.
So like there's real money in there. How much is there? $30 or something?
$40.
$40.
It's two $20 bills.
Two $20 bills that have honey and like, I guess they wash off.
Yeah, sure.
So
money is more like cloth than it is. It has a lot of plastic in it. The other one, this is a spell bag that had fresh herbs and also spices in it. So if I shake this, they're actually the cinnamon and stuff that I used in it comes out.
My computer,
Oh, sorry.
The computer.
Just have to blow it off later. But because it's in a bag that can get air to it, as stuff starts to dry out or mold or whatever, it just stays in the bag. And again, for me, it doesn't bother me that it does that. It's what the plant is naturally doing. And as it dries up, it's calling in, the energies to the stuff that's surrounding it. That's how I feel about it. But I guess that's why we were going to say it's a choice.
Right. Yeah. So if you don't like mold,
I mean, if you don't know what's going to happen with the fresh herb and you're planning on keeping it around a long time, Just experiment with it and see what happens.
Well, and that's another thing, like something to do with these different plants is to get to know them, like spend time with them, put them in different environments. What happens to them? And, that way you make this connection with that plant, in addition to learning what the magical properties are.
And I will say that I pretty much only work with magical ingredients that are all edible and not harmful to pets or me. That way I don't ever have to worry about like, you can't ingest this, so I don't work with like belladonna or I can't think of a D word. That sounds bad. It's a D flower.
I can think of the D word.
No, not.
Oh wait, it's Valentine's Day.
But there's a couple flowers out there that are really harmful to people, to animals.
Poisonous.
Yeah. So I don't work with them. You don't have to. If it excites you, do it. So then there's different forms in which your ingredients can come in. Like this is dried lavender. It's 3 years old. I have a huge thing of it. So this is just one portion that I took with me for a spell. So these are just the dried buds. So if I wanted to add that to something like the honey, it's possible that it could mold. I don't know. I've never put honey and that together. But if you wanted to add ingredients together, you could do the oil of lavender instead. So as we're doing a build your spell one later.
Yeah,
right?
we are going to do spell work. Yes.
But because this one is supposed to be about things you can go out and buy. And as you start to buy things, think about how you'll want to use them. I know Kat has a big thing of oils. Is it time to show that? Or
we can show that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were going to talk about essential oils, and I have actually a recommendation for you. I bought this. This brand is Lunar Moon. You guys can see that. And this is a 16, this was their top 16 oils. I looked for it on Amazon today. Something similar to this is about $30. I think I paid like $27 for it, but the smell is absolutely amazing. I love this. In the write-up for tonight's lesson, I did give you could start. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys something. I bought this $30 worth of oil probably 4 months ago. I've never cracked open a bottle. I thought I wanted to learn about it. So this is a lesson for us as we're going through and as new witches, and we're starting to accumulate these things that we have. Like, get the little set. Like there's one that you can buy for $10. It's got 6 essential oils in it, which I put as kind of like I don't know if it's a recommendation, but yeah, I guess it is recommendations. I recommend Luna Moon because it's really quality stuff. It gets this 6-piece set that's $10, has over 100,000 reviews on Amazon, $10. It's got lemongrass, peppermint, orange, lavender, eucalyptus, and tea tree. Just start with something small so you're not sitting on $30 worth of oils that you haven't really experimented with yet. I mean, there's just there's just no reason to do that. So what were you saying about oils?
Well, because if everything that I've told you about using the plants or, whether fresh or dried is like, I don't really want to have to deal with all of that. Dealing with oils can be a lot easier. You're still bringing in the essence, the magical properties of that plant, but in an oil that you can, dab onto something that you can put on paper or cloth, anything that the oil is going to stain something. It's going to absorb into it, but you can simplify it and you don't have to go through the plant side of it. Plants are just something that come natural for me now. They didn't a long time ago. I used to kill stuff, but I'm more in tune with plants now because I've taken time to learn about them. But the oil side of it, which is, part of the magical ingredients, I know witches that only use oils because then they don't have to care for the plants or dry them or keep them in jars. And this is a lot easier to store than I have. I have a whole cabinet dedicated to dried herbs. So it takes up less space. It's just things for you to consider during the practice. And when Kat's like, I bought this huge set and I want to learn to use it, I always say, start with the why you want to use it, for what, and then make the justification for buying it. I mean, I love seeing good deals and buying them. I'm also like, what is it? Fear of missing out prone. Like, oh, this is so
FOMO.
good. The FOMO. I fall victim to that where I'm like, oh, this is such a good deal. I got to do it. And then I never use it. And you know, the thing about essential oils, if they're good, if they're quality oils and you keep them in a dark place, they don't usually evaporate very fast. So you can have them for a couple of years and they're still okay. So durability. I mean, when my herbs that are dried get a year old, I let them all go back to the earth because I'm just like, I can grow fresh ones. I can cut them again. I can set that intention again. So you create your own standard of how long you keep your magical items as well. This brings us a little bit to house plants. I know that if you guys had downloaded the thing that Kat wrote up, that's so nice. Using plants in general, we're not going to go over any of the house plants tonight because we did a video a couple months back, or I don't know how long now, but it was all about how it was 10 house plants that you can use with magical purposes. And the idea is just that you have the house plant and you put it somewhere and then it's just working like a crystal. You have it somewhere, it's sitting there, it's doing its thing. So if you want to learn more about the house plants, please see the video that says like 10 magical house plants. I don't know the actual name of it. She names them, but it's magical house plants. I'm sure it's something very close to that. Yeah.
It was about propagating and all kinds of
House
stuff.
plants.
So it was specific. It wasn't a
Caring
meetup, it
for
was a
them.
video. Yeah. So
It was a meetup, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
Yes, it was a meetup.
What did we do when we filmed in your bedroom?
We had all the plants there.
That wasn't a meetup though. Anyway,
It was.
okay, never mind.
The video's out there regardless.
All right, look for the video
So-
that says something about plants. We
House
haven't done,
plants.
yeah, house plants.
says
We,
house
we haven't
plants,
done
yeah.
very many of them. So
Ooh, I think it's called 10 house plants for witches.
yeah,
Yes, I think that's it. Yes. Okay. My last little tidbit, because I want to get people thinking about as you buy stuff in stores, wherever you go, consider the container that you're buying things in. I made this remark to my mom about peanut butter, and I don't know why, because it's peanut butter, I guess. But peanut butters and jellies, those are my most common things that I reuse as spell jars. Spaghetti jars don't make great ones because they tend to smell like spaghetti for a long time. But when you buy jars of stuff, try to pay the extra $1 for the glass jar that can be reused into something else and stay with you for a longer amount of time rather than plastic. If you're in practicing witchcraft, we kind of, you know, the assumption is that you're trying to do better for Mother Earth and like for humanity and raise the vibration of everything. So making investments that are cheaper, but they're harming what we're trying to create is kind of going against what you want. But then it forces you to make decisions that more consciously, when you know you're going to spend a little bit of extra money to get something that then can be turned into something else. So it just makes it last. I have a peanut butter that I bought, and I think you can get peanut butter super, super cheap in plastic, like Jiffy and Peter Pan. I think that's them. But I bought this. I don't even know the name of this peanut butter, but it was in a glass jar and the top wasn't too crazy. And I'm like, that jar can 100% be repurposed. And there's nothing in it. There's nothing added to it. And I was like, it's worth the extra. I think this one was $3 more for the jar. So I was like, it's a perfect size jar for me. The peanut butter is like organic, non-GMO, whatever. And I'm going to reuse this thing. So every bit of my purchase felt good to me. Like who made it, how they made it, the jar that it's in, like knowing that I'll reuse it. So as we acquire our magical things, try to find the line that you want to draw for yourself and what you bring into your practice and into your home that aligns with something that you believe in. And that's my soapbox. That's going to be it. Okay.
I love that because I like the little jelly jars, you know, like Smucker's little jelly jars.
Yeah.
They're the perfect size, and I don't really care for the lids on them, but I can always spray paint the lids. I figure,
spray painting is
or
very
whatever
easy.
you call that other stuff.
Mod Podge.
Mod Podge, yeah.
Mhm.
I haven't done Mod Podge yet, so
Spray painting is
yeah.
easy.
Spray painting
Yeah.
is super easy. You can really change, you know, whatever's going to go in them. So, okay, the last thing on plants, herbs, and other things is about how to dry them, how long to
yeah.
dry them. So let's assume that you got something from
Your
yard or your garden, an herb, or I'm sorry, a weed, and you want to dry it. So I put a picture in the meetup tonight about some herbs hanging, up tied with the twine and hanging up. But Jamie really knows a lot about this because I've tried some. I've hung them in my house. I have some hanging right now. But she's done a lot more. Like I didn't really know how long. Is there a specific amount of time? I know you leave them in a low light place
Low light.
with ventilation.
Like some kind of moving air is best. So if you have a ceiling fan or if you have a small home fan or something, they need the air movement to stop the mold from growing.
So that's the other thing about them is you wouldn't want them to be a really thick bunch because you need that airflow in there. So, or air movement, just space between the whatever your bunch that you're drying, which is probably why you see those smaller bunches. You see lots of smaller bunches together.
They dry well.
You need them to, they'll dry faster. If you happen to live in Florida, she was saying you could put these out and they'll dry in one day because the sun is like scorching hot here. If you don't live in that kind of environment, you live in a more, well, we have humidity, but we also just have scorching hot sun. So anything else you want to talk about in terms of
oven? So you can dry stuff in your oven. It would need to be at a very low temperature, 175, maybe 200, just depending on what kind of oven you have. But you can lay them flat on a cookie sheet and you just keep checking on them until they're as dry as you want them. So you can actually, if you want to get them semi-dry and then hang them somewhere, you can do that as well by exposing them to that high dry heat and then hanging them somewhere or putting them in an airtight container to finish drying out. When I have rose petals, so I love to try to keep the colors of the rose petals, but I'll often use our heat here to take off the colored rose petals, lay them out on a pan for a couple hours, and they start to get really dry. And then I seal them in a jar where they can dry the rest of the way. And you can add, have you guys know the little silica packets that you get with like shoes and whatever, and it's like do not eat because it's silica. You can keep those and you can add that to something that's semi-dry. Don't do it when it's really fresh because it won't absorb enough of it. But you can put that in there to help absorb the rest of the herbs, juice, wetness, whatever, water content for the month that you want to leave it in there. And drying from hanging is anywhere from a week to 3 weeks, depending on the herb. And then in your oven, you can do it in a day. And if you have scorching hot sun, you can do it in 1 day to 2. But this is about the trial and error of learning your plants, learning your herbs, knowing how you want to connect with them, how you want to have them.
I actually had some get moldy on me.
Do you know what it was?
I think it was basil or something. Wherever I said it, all of a sudden I looked at it and I was like, "Oh God, there's buzz growing on it." And then I tried to dry oranges in the oven, and I guess I didn't leave them in there long enough because I took them out. They looked all dried and everything, but then like 2 days later, I look at them, I was like, "Oh, they're growing mold." So I just recently read about oranges in particular. They're like 6 hours in the oven, like, I don't know, 250 or something like that. I'm like, that's a long time to run your oven. I'd rather just buy a dehydrator. Yeah. So, because I love the little orange garlands. I love those things. They're just so cool. And oranges are, as Jamie mentioned, they have great magical properties. So, dry those and get them in a jar where you can't get air. But Sandra, I see Sandra's asked us about why upside down. And I don't know, I always see them like that. Is there a particular reason why we're hanging them upside down?
Okay, well, I know it sounds really funny, but imagine trying to dry them right side up. This is the plant. So they're gonna dry really funny. So by hanging them by their hard stick parts, and the soft leaves are going to the end, they just dry in a formation that's easier to work with.
Yeah, I could see like drying this, like,
so it's just gonna be like, what do I do? I don't know where to go. So when you hang it from its most stable parts, that's why. It's not that you can't dry them right side up. You're just going to have a J when you pull it out.
It sounds like something to experiment with. It might be funny.
Listen, it might be funny. It might, yeah.
Thanks for the question, Sandra.
And if you're going to break it up or grind it, then that doesn't matter, right? But if you want to wrap it into something, like I'll add mine to sage bundles, like already created sage bundles, I'll wrap in other stuff. So that's why it's really nice to have it dried in a formation that will lay nicely along with the sage or the cedar or pine needles that I have, so practicality, I think that's really it. It's just what you want to do with it.
Before, and thank you again for the question. You're welcome. And before we move on to our next subject, which is going to be 10 workhorse crystals, for those of you who haven't started yours, or maybe have started yours, but have kind of randomly purchased crystals. I want to talk about a couple of other things that Jamie brought to my attention tonight in spells, magnets. So at the bottom of this is a magnet, and then mirrors. So do you want to talk about the little pieces of mirror?
Yeah.
So can you talk to us about that?
Sure.
About using magnets and mirrors? Because it's not
in a lot of
they're
books,
not, but they're also not they're not like plants, but they do have magical properties.
Yeah.
And they are what is it? She's a science nerd, so she's gonna tell us about that. So
okay, so glass is really made of sand that's been melted, right? I mean, most glass, you can get really cheap glass that's not made of that. But so mirrors are like most sand is quartz. So a mirror is liquid quartz molded into this and then has a metallic backing. That's what the old mirrors used to be. That's why they could look a little wonky or, get weird after a while. So mirrors today still hold the magic energy of, reflection, deep thoughts, getting to know yourself, pushing things back out so they can be vanishing, they can be bringing in. It's however you see a mirror's magical abilities. If you avoid mirrors, I mean, that's something that could be shadow work for yourself. So I avoid mirrors because, I don't like to look at myself, or every time I do, I notice this one thing. It's getting deeper into yourself. That's what the mirror can do. A mirror is a representation of water and reflection.
And what if you have mirrors like all over your house, like I do? Is that like a sign of vanity?
No. So in feng shui, mirrors are a cure, which means they move energy around better. So just like how quartz is an amplifier of other things, mirrors are amplifiers of good energy when you have them placed well. So the mirrors above the bed thing, people are on both sides of the fence as far as like how good that really is for energy flow in a bedroom, because it keeps people awake. It's not something that would be soothing in a bedroom, right? So a bedroom with a specific purpose, like maybe you just have your own lovemaking bedroom and that's where you do your deeds, and it's got like swings and all the other stuff.
That's like fun.
That could be fun. I've seen hotel rooms like this. No, I haven't. In movies, I have.
Porno movies.
I was thinking 50 Shades of Grey or something like that. Right. So mirrors move energy. And so when we do feng shui cures, that's one of the first things we look at. Where is the movement elements? And mirrors are one of those things. So this can be put into spells. This is a little tile from a craft store. When you do the mosaic stuff, you can go like buy the tiles and things. That's where I got this little mirror, and I use it in cures in my house where walls cut into stuff or I've got angles that aren't right. I stick a tiny mirror somewhere that helps reflect the energy off, so that's not like rushing into one space and getting stuck. So I use it in spells for that same reason. It's like energy is stuck in one place, whether it's I can't lose weight. Well, why? So I put I put the energy of the mirror in the spell to help me either make reflections on myself, like, well, what are you really doing? Are you really logging all your calories, or are you really like whatever? Or stagnant energy around a job, a relationship. So anything that you can think of, that's what a mirror is going to do. It's going to move the energy around, or it's going to have you reflect on what's really going on. With magnets are from the earth, right? It's literally created from minerals in the earth. And there can be man-made magnets, just so you know. And you can use, what's the stone, mommy?
Oh,
hematite.
Hematite.
For magnet also, but hematite is not as strong as a magnet made in a factory where they grind it down and create the strongest pull with it. So what magnets are used for in spells is when you want to attract something fast. This is like adding spice, adding fire, adding something that's like, let's do this quickly. You add a magnet to your spell to bring it in quick. And that's it. I mean, that's the only time I've ever used it. It was like, I need action faster. Come on, we need to get this moving. And they sell spell magnets. They're not as common, but if you have, we used to collect refrigerator magnets because when my son was little and we traveled around, that's what he always wanted, was new refrigerator magnets. But you can collect magnets from anywhere and keep them around for spells. That's why we were talking about any little jars you get. This is why witches have cabinets full of jars of stuff. It's like our collections, because we know we might need them one day.
Yes.
Magnets are one of those things.
So I'm always scouring Goodwill for good jars. Spell jars,
yeah.
jars to store stuff in.
Mhm.
It's like, I feel like they're absolutely essential for a witch because you
Yeah.
have so many things that you need to collect. Because in time, you're going to put them in a spell or use them in some kind of a way magically.
I don't know when this is a charm. I thought I was
They
going to
are
go over all the
charms.
spells really quick.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to show you guys something really quick that is just something that I've done. That these are basically spell charms. I can't reach my hand up there, mommy. That have different ingredients in them, but they're locked in epoxy, or what's this stuff called? It's not also called epoxy. Resin.
Resin.
It's locked in resin.
And here's the other one.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see that one as well, but here's the other one. So you can see there's stones, there's crystals in there and some gold flakes.
Yep. This
I
one
believe in
has,
here.
yeah. It's tiger's eye, peridot, and
Tiger's eye, peridot,
and gold leaf.
And gold leaf.
So that's a health spell, but in a charm form to where I can put it away, I can give it to somebody so I can charge it and repurpose it, and then it can come back to me. And it's always in the same existence, and it can just be used over and over again to bring energy into the room for that. This one, it's got pine needles in it, rose petals. Pine needles, rose petals, jade, and silver leaf, I think. So this is health because pine and jasper are all about like the bloodstream, protecting your health, getting things pumping, heart, blood, anything to do with that. So this is another way to bring items into your craft that then can you don't ever have to do this spell thing again, except for the process of charging it and setting your intentions with it, and then either carrying it, wearing it, handing it to your kid, lover, husband, friend, mom, whoever, to keep them in good spirits. So I think that was it for my show and tell of spells and stuff. And like that's dried things. Like those rose petals are from roses from my garden that I dried and made little clippings of, and my pine tree, and
she made those so cute.
They were.
So one last question from Sandra before we move on. She wants to know if American Amplifying spread the spell energy in a spell jar.
Sure.
And a magnet keeps energy close and together?
No. So a magnet is not for holding things together, but it's for bringing it into your life faster. So imagine, drawing it into you faster. So the result that you're looking for. So whatever intention you've set with your spell, that adding that magnet to the spell, that would be something that you say while you're creating it. You say in the spell, like as plainly as this: I add this magnet to increase the flow of love, wealth, health, career success, whatever, into my spell. So it's as simple as that. You're letting the magnet know your job is to now bring this to me quick, bring it to me fast. For mirrors, the amplification, I love that. Yeah, you set your jars on the mirrors. You can set crystals on mirrors, anything to amplify that. It's like, it's a symbol of water or like shining a light through something that just, I picture that like it's a spotlight. It's not, but it reflects in that manner. That's the energy that it does. So yeah, that's a great question for it.
Thank you again for a good question, Sandra. Okay.
Workhorse crystals. I love that.
Okay.
Did you come up with that name for them?
Actually, it's in the book. So
okay.
the next thing we're going to talk about, this is going to wrap up until we'll go into our exercises after this, but now we're going to talk about crystals. So one of the things I did this week is, I think I've mentioned to you guys before, I love books, and a lot of my learning has been through books. I swear to God, every time she brings one over, I'm like, I want that book. I have this huge library. But so some of them have turned out to be, I think, like super good resource references. And this is one of them. And this is Crystals for Beginners. And I'll tell you why. I actually wrote a little bitty review in this week's lesson. So all the information I'm about to share with you is in this lesson. So you don't have to take notes. You can refer to it in the Google Docs. But the reason why I really love this is because one of my pet peeves with authors is they go blah, 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 blah with the story before they ever get to the point of why you're there to read the doggone book. You got the book for the information, so get to the information. This author, whose name is Karen, I'm sorry, that's just my own personal thing. Some people love that stuff. They love, and I get why authors do it. It's because you're creating this personal relationship, this personal story, so that people remember you. But I'm one of those people. It's like, I bought this book for a reason. Get me to the reason that I got this book. And that's what I love about her. She does not waste your time with a bunch of stories. In the first, in the first part of this, you get a good history about, and quick to the point where you can remember it. So you get a little history about basic crystal knowledge, a little bit of science and crystal systems, some pairings, some shopping tips. And so that's in the first part of it. In part 2, she breaks it down into 10 workhorse crystals, which we're going to go over. And then in the next section of that, she breaks it down into like 40 crystals to know. So she actually has chosen crystals that have a lot of different magical properties that are pretty easy to find. You can find them in most metaphysical stores that aren't too expensive.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's I would recommend this as a really good for beginners as a reference point. It is like, I think I even put the cost of the book on Amazon. It's like $8.99. And if you don't want to spend that much money, there's a site called Alibris, ALIBRIS.com. They're a used bookseller. You can get it for $4.36 there. I think you might have to pay shipping. So that is the book recommendation. It is in this week's lessons. But before let me talk to you about the 10 workhorse crystals. So one of the things I did for you, because I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, but those 10 workhorse crystals are amethyst, black tourmaline, carnelian, citrine, clear quartz, fluorite. Do I say that right? Fluorite, hematite, which we just talked about as magnetic, rose quartz, smoky quartz, and turquoise, which I just love that turquoise is one of these workhorses because I like turquoise jewelry and I had no idea that it had so many good magical properties to it. So in those 10 crystals, you've got the amplifiers, which are amethyst. So what's an amplifier, Jamie? Help me with that.
So like the mirror thing that we were just talking about, an amplifier takes the energy of something and its surroundings, and it produces a higher vibration to make more of that. So it's like a multiplier.
Okay.
So it multiplies whatever the intent is, whatever the energy is, vibration.
Okay. So your amplifiers in that group of 10 are amethyst, citrine, clear quartz, rose quartz, and smoky quartz. And then you've got absorbers. So these things absorb negative energies: black tourmaline, carnelian, fluorite, hematite, and turquoise. Again, I made an Excel file for you guys that gives you much more information. So you don't have to go out and buy this book. You don't have to buy this book at all, ever. But if you want to know about those 10 crystals and things like what their energy is, what colors they come in, what chakras they're associated with, where to put them either on your person or in your house, what they help with, like intuition or insomnia or travel, how to pair them, so what they work well with, like everything works well with clear quartz. Mm-hmm. Then you can refer to that spreadsheet that I created for you guys. Let's see.
And these are easy to find.
Yes.
Not too expensive.
Yeah.
If you find them and they're very expensive, reconsider. All of them are very common. And I think what was great about the 10 is that if you just had these 10, you really could perform any spell that you wanted to using a crystal, because using those 10 would serve all of those purposes. So whatever purpose you could come up with, one of those crystals is going to serve that purpose. That was the same with the herbs that we listed, which Kat will get that added to the Excel spreadsheet. But you could have just 5 things, and any spell that you wanted to do on a whim you could be ready to do. It wouldn't take going to a store, ordering something online, waiting a couple days. Like you could be more immediate when you get that inspired thought, like, I need to do this. The action is now.
And keep in mind, in a week or 2 weeks, I think we start with spell work, pre-spell work and spell work. So as you guys are, for those of you who've been here, or those of you who are just joining, as you start thinking about the kind of spell work, types of spells you want to do, like what do you want to bring into your life? We've talked about a lot of different things over the 6 weeks of this course. And by the time we get to pre-spell work and then actual spell work, we're going to cover even more. But you're going to have the basics of what you don't, like I've always said, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. You have a lot of things at your disposal. And the power's in the witch, not in the things that we acquire. The things that we acquire help us raise our vibration, raise the vibration, make us feel more connected, if you will, to the spells. I mean, I love them. I wouldn't ever do without them, but you don't have to, especially if you're brand new to this and you're like, I really don't know where this is going for me. Please don't go run out and spend a bunch of money or feel like you have to do anything. But anyway, my point of saying this is in a few weeks, we're actually going to start pre-spell work and then do some spells. So be thinking about what kind of spells would you like to do? And of all the things that you've learned, you know, the magical properties and crystals and stuff like that, what do you need? What are you going to need? And start trying to find those things in your cupboards, at your Goodwill store, wherever. Maybe you already have them. So
I want to tell you guys a small story. I won't be long. So you guys may know I was in the Navy, right? So I'm on a ship and it's very limited space on what you can bring when you go on deployments. I mean, very limited space. So I couldn't have my library of books. I couldn't have anything with me. Not that there were any books back then. Oh my gosh. That was another thing. Everything was like printed papers offline that I had to keep in a book of shadows. But I couldn't carry herbs with me. I couldn't carry stones with me. I mean, seriously limited space. I would have had to choose between underwear and my amethyst. And I'm going to choose underwear every time. So when I used to do spells, when I had nothing, my spells were on paper and I used colors. That was it. I knew numerology, I knew colors, and I knew what to write, or I knew a symbol. And that was my whole entire spell on a piece of paper and then folded up and put somewhere safe for my knowings. That is how I did spell work from like 2000 to about 2003. Because then after that, I was on a ship that was always in port. I didn't have to worry about it much. So when she's talking about having just basic stuff and it just has to really be you and knowing what you want and bringing that intention in, that's 100% true. I used to do automatic writing for that. My spell was automatic writing. It's just going over and over and over and waiting for things to come clear to me. So it doesn't require everything that we've discussed, although it's very pretty and it smells very nice and it adds an ambiance. And I think that's why we get into it so much, because it helps raise our own vibration to get more in the mood, you know, not just raise the vibration of the spell, but it helps you get into that place of like, I'm ready to work. Like this is now is time. So just a little side note, pen and paper and colors. That was all I had.
and you bring up a good point, because I think we talked about this, like in spells, when you start to create your spells. I know Jamie's she's got a piece of green paper in here. I guarantee you there's something written on that, or symbols for money, or something about money, her intention. So there's symbols like the dollar sign. The dollar sign represents money. A heart represents love. So you don't actually have to have a heart or dollar sign. You could put that, you could cut out a pink heart. You could do things in pairs for love and stuff like that. So things that mean to you and things that are some symbolic to you or a particular type of spell. So
this is Post-it notes. Like I have a ton of them. I got them for free at my last job, so I have way too many. But I use Post-it notes, and this is just a sigil that I drew on a Post-it note that then I put into the spell. So that was the only writings I did for that, because the sigil represents the desire, and that's it. Like a sticky note, Post-it note. So,
simple as that. Simple as that.
It doesn't have to be too complicated.
Okay. All right, so we're at 7:27, so I'm going to quickly wrap up so that we can open up the floor, open up the meetup for questions. And for those of you who are brand new and haven't been here before, what we do is we do a little closing, Then we turn off the recording and then we allow you to ask questions. Not quite yet, because I got to give you guys your exercises for this week. Okay. So one thing that let's see, where am I? Exercises and journaling. So your exercises for this week are to take an inventory. So you got 2 when it comes to crystals. If you have crystals already, take an inventory of what you own, write down their names, write down their uses and their names and their properties in your book of shadow. If you don't know them, look them up, find out what all those crystals are used for. If you have the ability, get a picture off the internet of the picture and put that with your description in your book of shadows. It'll be a good reference for you later on in identification. I think Joan sent a picture in our Facebook group about a whole bunch of crystals that she bought. It was like a whole little collection of them, different colors. And she's like, I bought these so long ago, I'm not sure what to do with them.
Yeah.
And we were like, I think Jamie answered her. I was going to try to answer her by color. I can sort of identify some of them. Like I know by color what they might be, but I may not be able to identify them exactly. So if you can put a picture in your book, great. If you don't have a color printer, don't worry about it. So if you have crystals already, so create these in your book of shadows or your magic journal. If you haven't yet purchased any crystals, think about what crystals you might like to purchase or how you might like to use crystals based on some of the information that you've learned. And if you didn't learn too much, which I hope you did from this, then do a little research. The one thing I would caution against is running out and buying a bunch of stuff. And by the way, the size of the crystal, the shape of the crystal, whether it's rough or whether it's polished or however it's cut, none of that makes a difference. The crystal has the properties that it has, regardless of what it looks like. And some of those can get pretty expensive when they make them really fancy, at some of the stores. I've seen some, they're like, oh, this is a polished stone, so this costs you $10 more than that rough stone. Well, they have the exact same properties. Okay, so that's exercise 1. All right, exercise 2. I don't know where everybody lives. So this may not be, you may not be able to do this yet, but
it's yet.
Yes, yet. But I think this is a really good exercise because again, we are building our knowledge. We're building our references with our book of shadows. We're going to be able to, a year from now, we're going to be able to look back at this and go like, I remember when I went out into my yard or I went out into my neighborhood park and I found yarrow. What was that? What did that look like? So your second exercise is to identify plants growing in your yard or near your house. And with plants, I mean anything that's growing, like weeds and trees and flowers. Identify what you have around you because we're all different. And then do a little research and find out the magical properties. If you're an artist, illustrate those. If you want to take a picture and put them in there, I personally love the illustration. But you can also put a little picture in your book so that, again, your book of shadows, you're building a reference for you for later on. If where you are, the ground is covered with snow and there's absolutely nothing there, then just wait and do this at another date. And my last thing for you is this. We're 6 weeks into this series, which is how are you doing on your journaling? I hope that you are doing some reflections and writing some things down. And here's a couple questions that you can reflect on this week if you haven't been journaling. Okay, here you go. What area of magic ingredients, herbs, plants, oils, crystals, color correspondences, or something else interests you the most and why? What are your plans to increase your knowledge and experience with your favorite magic ingredient or ingredients? So reflect on those questions and answer those in your journal and really just spend some time with it. You will be glad you did when you're looking back on this journal 1 year or 5 years from now.
Or 6 months.
Or 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shoot.
Thank you everyone for joining us for week 6 of the Beginner Witch series. We hope to see you next week for
week 7.